Dr. Bart Ehrman, I hear you have another seminar coming up. Would you like to tell us about it?
Yes, absolutely. So this one is on the heresies of early Christianity. And so we're moving outside the New Testament period into mainly the second century, but into the third century to talk about various groups of Christians who believed various things completely at odds with each other, who were all trying to get converts and who disagreed with each other and had books showing that their views are right and others are wrong. Groups like the Gnostics, groups like followers of Marcion, people who continue to be Jewish Christians, various groups with various books. And so we're going to be talking about these various groups believed. We're going to talk about the various books they had and sort of dig into these beliefs that later were declared false beliefs.
Fascinating. And I have some questions about that. And the first one might this might not be one that you're necessarily prepared for. This is one that it is relevant to the heresies that you're talking about. I think because I think this began early on. But this was one that I asked you about an email, but we never had a chance to talk about it personally. It's the proto-evangelium,
Mm-hmm.
the alleged prophecy in Genesis 3:15.
Mm-hmm.
If we read it literally, it is an etiology, like Kipling's Just So story, like the how the elephant lost its, or how the elephant got its trunk, or the Vietnamese folktale of how the tiger got its stripes. But in this case, it is the biblical fable of how the snake lost its legs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read it prophetically, then it's not about snakes at all. That it becomes that the serpent is not a snake, but he's somehow secretly Satan. And the woman is not a woman, but she's a metaphor for Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And the descendant of man is therefore not the whole of mankind, but is just Jesus by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the descendants of the serpent are still Satan. So Satan gives birth to himself, I guess, like God gave birth to himself to create Jesus. And so Jesus is his own father and Satan is his own son. I'm not sure about all that.
Okay.
But what throws me on this, and I'm sorry that it takes so long to set up this question, is that people tell me about this prophecy embedded in Genesis 3:15, which obviously the Jews didn't hold to that. You know, they have this traditional legend that it might have been Lilith in disguise. And then the people who commissioned Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and the sculptor who did the bust on the entrance of Notre Dame Cathedral, and a whole bunch of different artists at that time, church commissioned artwork, show the serpent not as a Satan character, but as a woman. The top half is a naga, so that the top half of the body is female, the bottom half is a snake, a woman and a snake mixed. And so when this must have been the original interpretation. When did this other interpretation? Are you familiar with this? Does this make sense? Is this something you want to address?
I can take a shot at
Thank you.
it. So, first of all, yeah, you're right. In Genesis, it's a snake with legs, and it has its legs taken away as its punishment. Adam is punished for eating the fruit. Eve is punished for eating the fruit and giving it to Adam. The serpent is punished for convincing Eve to do that. Satan is not in the story. The fruit is not called an apple, by the way. It's just a piece of fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And and the serpent is portrayed as a very crafty animal. The reason it comes to be identified as Satan is because of something in the New Testament. It's in the book of Revelation, where Satan is called the dragon, the serpent of old. And so that's referring back then to this Genesis story. And Christians then started interpreting the serpent as being an embodiment of Satan. And so that's why sometimes you'll see a serpent portrayed with a demonic head on it, for example. Why would you have it half woman, half snake? I think is the question you're asking. And I don't know I don't know if there's an absolute answer for that, but my suspicion is that it's because in early Christian writings, it was understood that, in fact, going back to the New Testament, that the perpetrator of evil among humans was the woman. And so in First Timothy, the author says that Adam wasn't tempted, the woman was, and she led her husband astray. And when you get on into second and third century Christianity, you get authors like Tertullian who claim that the woman is particularly susceptible to the lures of Satan. And so Satan and womanhood are somehow combined as the problem. So my guess is that this dual figure is somehow related to that, to the woman being a participant with Satan in bringing sin to humans.
I appreciate that. I've asked like 3 or 4 other biblical historians, scholars on the Bible, and I got good answers. But I don't know that any of them cover the things that you just mentioned. So I do appreciate that. I also want to bring up, since you mentioned it, that the Eve was tempted, not Adam, as it was. According to that, if that is the sequence, then Eve ate of the fruit and knew right and wrong, knew good and evil, and thought that it would be good to give it to Adam too.
Well, it's a good point. The author doesn't say that, but it would be the implication, yes.